Hey everyone, this is Helene and happy Saturday. Welcome to Virtual Veg Fest Live. We are very fortunate today because we've got someone who is, I'll be blunt, cool as shit, who is Gretchen Primack. So I am super excited that she is joining us because I've known her for at least 4 years. Oh, 2015. 5 years is how long it's been. First, let's take care of some business. Thank you to Norapola for sponsoring our lives this week. You can go to the norapola.com website and get 10% off your order if you use the code VegFest2020. Norapola is also up on virtualvegfest.com where you can watch these lives and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Which is called Virtual Veg Fest, and of course shop our vendors so that everyone can get through this pandemic and survive and be happy. And the Plant-Based Network, who's our partner, which we absolutely love and adore. We're super happy to have them with us. If you have any questions or comments, you know that you can write to us and we'll respond and react and say hello. If someone we know or don't know, we'll do that. But let me tell you a little bit about Gretchen. Back in 2015, I'm pretty sure Gretchen reached out to me to come to Triangle Veg Fest. And it wasn't like with Chef AJ. It was that year. It was probably my most difficult event that I've put on because I took it all on my own shoulders and I learned a valuable lesson to ask for help. Asking for help is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Please do it when you need it, because by the time we got to the event, which was a pretty big outdoor festival with some indoor parts, I was a walking zombie. And one of the things that we did that we learned that year was to not put vendors and speakers in the same room. And not have speakers in a room with a lot of echo, high ceiling, stuff like that. Not competing. This was my lesson. I learned it in our second year, and Gretchen suffered through sharing her poetry and speaking to a pretty decent-sized crowd, of which I did not see because I avoided the room for the rest of the day. Like, no joke. Because it was pretty stressful and I felt badly. So I felt badly enough that I wrote to Gretchen and I said, hey, do you like mac and cheese? And mac and cheese is her jam. So she came down, I think in 2016, 17, I'm not even sure. And she was one of our judges, I think 2017, for our vegan mac and cheese cook-off that we have annually with the Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge, which is the shirt that Gretchen is wearing. Which is another little plug. Our Pass the Buck campaign to raise money is for Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge this month. So if you donate $1, you get entered into a contest and you help the 120 plus farm animals that are living in sanctuary at the refuge. So it's a perfect shirt to have on, and Lenore would really appreciate that. So Gretchen came down and she was one of our judges, and Lenore was one of them. We ate mac and cheese and she read her poetry. And I felt better because I felt like I needed to make up to her for having a pretty horrific experience, because she was honest with me. She said, no, it was really bad. you were like, no, it was really, really hard. And I was like, I felt terrible. I mean, I feel terrible when stuff goes wrong. So I try to do my best to make it up. So Gretchen is here today to share more about her. We'll have a conversation. She's going to read her poetry. We're going to see her new book cover. We're going to hear poetry that nobody's heard before because it's in the new book. And I'm going to throw it at Gretchen because I've talked long enough.
What a trip. I don't even remember saying that, but it's true that I'm ridiculously honest. So there you go.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But I have such good memories of the rest of it, like hanging out with you and meeting amazing people and walking around and eating a lot of food and, all that. So it was a good experience.
I mean, outside of that, and me being a walking zombie, it was good. It was a good year. Everyone was really happy with the event. It was just difficult. I was done. People asked me about doing an event in Wilmington at that event, and I was like, talk to me in weeks. Talk to me like weeks from now, because right now I just need to get through today.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Are we wearing the same glasses?
They're close.
Very similar glass. Anyway.
Let's talk about Gretchen.
Let's talk about my glasses.
Right.
No, know. It's nice to see you, and it's nice to be here. And yeah, I would be happy to read some poems and talk about all that stuff. And if anybody is listening who has heard my stuff or has read the book of poems that I read from there, which is called Kind, and has a favorite poem that they'd like to hear, by all means, let me know via Helene, via technology,
Right.
which is not my forte, but here we are. Since this book, I've written another one, which came out last year, and it is called Visiting Days. I've got a copy of that. And I've been teaching in prison for a lot of years, and so this book is actually about that. It imagines maximum security men's prison like the ones where I teach, and each poem is in the voice of somebody who's incarcerated in this imaginary prison or somebody visiting them. And the reason I mention it is that my favorite poem in this book is vegan themed. One of my students there is a man named Intelligent who went vegan in prison. He served 19 years and was vegan for most of that time. He figured out fairly early on that in order for him to renounce violence, he needed to be vegan. And in order for him to care for himself, respect his body, he needed to be vegan. And so he's a real hero of mine, because doing that in maximum security prison is incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. And it's funny because you hear people all the time. I mean, I was one of them 13 years ago before I went vegan who was like, oh, it's been so hard. And then, you know, here's somebody, you want hard? I'll tell you hard, you know. And it's not anything out here in the United States. It's in facilities. That's hard. And he still did it. So I thought I would start by reading this poem that is inspired by him. So it's in the voice of a character, a man named Knowledge. This is not Intelligent. This is somebody who's inspired by him. I'm not going to speak for Intelligent. He's out in the world. He can speak for himself. He actually lives in Atlanta now.
Oh, awesome.
And as you know, Helene, and as a lot of people know, probably in North Carolina, Atlanta is vegan heaven. So he is in heaven, and he continues to be a big deal activist for veganism.
That's awesome.
So here's this poem, Knowledge. I honor life by not taking it anymore. Not a fish's life, not a calf's, no one's brother or child. I did violence. I put it between my teeth, and it formed my blood, and I took blood. Now I eat what they ate in Eden before violence. Now I ask forgiveness for the life I've taken that wasn't mine to take. The man, and the calves and the fishes, the chicks and their mothers. The cops here laugh. Their work is domination. They lord over. And some men on my block call themselves kings. But I am done with that. In every soul of me and every body.
Oh, that was great.
There's actually one more poem in here that is animal themed, and it's one of the few poems in the book that isn't in first person, in the voice of an imaginary person, what we call persona poems. And this one is called The Caged, because, you know, if you're interested in animal rights and are also care about issues around incarceration, you notice that there are very similar things going on. That what we're talking about is power differential, how we treat others, how we lord over and decide who has value and who doesn't, and what to do about that, and the violence implicit in that. and really about who we cage. So let me read this one other poem from this book, and it is called The Caged. The chickens, stuffed 10 to 1. The felons. The beagles, stuffed with drain clearer. The pot dealers. The pot smokers. The cabs, chained neck to door. The transports, chained wrist to ankle. The rapists. The turkeys in fall. The no I didn't. The bait dogs. The dog fighters. The breeding sows. The egg layers. The murderers. The convicted innocents. The convicted. The innocents. So yeah, I think it's interesting to think about the way that issues dovetail, right? The issues that we think about as thinkers, as progressive people in the world, as people who care, who think, who do critical thinking. How do these issues dovetail?
No, it's incredibly important. And it's, poetry just makes you think and feel. And you don't even realize until you're reading, especially when it's being read to you, it's almost mesmerizing, because it's one thing to read it from a book. It's another thing to, and this has been 2 weeks, this is the second week in a row where I have someone reading poetry to all of us, and it's actually really nice.
Yeah, I got to hear Keith. I love Keith. He is an amazing human being. And it was great to hear him. I'm so glad you had him on, and I'm so glad he read.
Right, because one thing that I didn't mention is our Connection with Ethical Choices program. And Gretchen was in the first class, and you were fortunate enough to have Keith as an instructor or leader as well.
Yeah, or maybe I was the second class, or early, but not. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
That's how I got to meet him.
Right, and then he was our class as well. And then after our class, he was no longer doing that with the teaching.
Interesting.
Right. So we were incredibly fortunate that we had him. Well, I don't know. I can't say that. The next class, whatever happened. But we were very fortunate because Keith is just, if you haven't seen the talk with him from last week, you can see it on virtualvegfest.com or our YouTube channel. And he reads his poetry. And yes, there's some tech issues in the middle of it, but that's okay. You can still hear us. But because he had to let his dog out, which, everyone understands. But absolutely an incredible human being, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we learned when we met him through Ethical Choices. And then you can just, follow him and he's got a very interesting background that we can't even talk about because of Ethical Choices. So, sorry, but you can probably look him up if you want to learn more. We just couldn't talk about it live. But Gretchen's got, this new book. I'm going to try to put something on the screen, and if you let me know if it actually works or not, let me know if anyone's watching, because I know Gretchen can't see this, but if you're watching and you can see what I just put up, please put a comment to show the new cover of the book for Kind Poems, which is absolutely adorable. And is that one of your dogs?
No, we have two fantastic rescue pitties, and but this image, which I hope you guys can see, and future folks can see, is the new cover for a new, like a republication of my book, Kind, that came out in 2013. So this one is going to be out in the spring, and it's being republished by Lantern Books, which does a lot of amazing vegan-themed books. And the cover art is from an amazing artist, DC-based artist named Dana Ellyn, Ellyn, and she's, as you can see, a genius. And behind me is another Dana Ellyn. There. Now you can see.
I'm covering my face with a kind poem, and then you're squatting over.
Oh, jeez. Okay, great. So they're seeing that, and I'm doing that for no reason because they probably can't see me. But
But they
yeah,
can
if
see you.
for when you can see me, behind me is a Dana Ellen, and you can see that she's vegan and does a lot of art that's vegan themed. So you can see here her drawing comparison between cats and chicks. You can see on the cover of Kind, well, what is the difference between a pig and a dog? Right? So I'm so lucky that she has allowed me to use her work. And you can go to danaellen.com and look up her incredible work.
That's awesome. Let me see. I'll put that in here. DANAELLYN, right?
You got it. Yeah.
Yep. I'll throw that into the comments. Because at least I know that will come up in the comments.
Yes.
So when people are watching, that'll stream through. So what would you like to share with us now?
So there's some kind of perennial favorites from Kind that people say, oh my God, that one. Oh, that one. So I'm happy to read a couple of those. And then I thought it might be fun to read, like you said earlier, ones that have never been heard aloud, ones that I've written since this publication that are now going to be put into the new one in the spring. So people who have this book just know that there's going to be about 10 new poems in this edition. So I'll start with one from the original, which is called Coxcomb, based on a true story about a rooster who I met at a farm animal sanctuary. If anybody has not been to Piedmont animal refuge, it is tremendous. Lenore is, like Keith, a fantastic human being, really, really smart, really considerate. I've been to a lot of farm animal sanctuaries, and Helene, when we went there, it was kind of life-changing. She's really doing it right. Yes. So I really hope everybody goes there. Take people that you know who don't think about farmed animals, see what they have to say. But here's a poem about a rooster that I've known. This is called Coxcomb. Abraham was a rooster. He'd been made to fight. He was not a fighter. He ended up in a basement with no one touch the killer. We brought him to the sanctuary. He loved peanut butter and jelly. He loved laps and Linda's pillow. He was not a fighter. He wanted to be held by toddlers, Phi Beta Kappas, grievers and socialists and pop stars. He wanted you to gentle his comb between your forefinger and thumb. It was a smooth, warm piece of a smooth, warm Abraham, and it blushed bliss. It was tender, like someone who had been as unloved as a chicken, and then as loved as a chicken could be loved. He grew old and full of love, and died, rubbing his head back and forth against Linda's arm. We planted Coxcomb, a growing glow.
Oh. And of course, Suzanne is sent a wave. Suzanne is on the board of Piedmont Farm Animal Refuge. You probably met her when you were here. So she's watching. So hi, Suzanne. Thanks for joining us. And of course, you came in right at the right time because we're talking about the refuge. So
terrific.
Yes, I know. That's so cool. What is, I mean, I'm guessing that's, and this is my naivete when it comes to planting, that's a flower? A plant?
Exactly. The coxcomb is a flower, and it actually looks a bit like, you can tell if you Google it, you'll be like, oh, that's why it's called coxcomb, because it's kind of roughly and looks a bit like a coxcomb.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, thank you. I'll have to do that. Yeah, I not a green thumb. So, yeah, this is amazing. How long have you been writing poetry for?
Oh, geez. I mean, I was nerdy. I did that as a kid, and then kind of hated it like everybody else, right? You just have these terrible poetry lessons in high school where you're like, oh, these poems are so boring, and my teacher is obviously bored too, and didn't really get back into it until college, and not even early college, like mid to late. Just a really good teacher kind of getting me into it, and starting to write some more and writing really shitty poems, because I was like 15, I mean, sorry, 17, 18, 19. And, but I don't know, I stuck with it and would just take classes or workshops or kind of and ended up, going to grad school for an MFA in poetry writing, and have been teaching for a long time.
Right, and you're in New York,
Yeah.
so right, and we talked about before we went live how COVID, the pandemic, really did a nice job on New York and New York downstate more than upstate, but still the whole state. And I know you're more upstate than you are downstate, but you did say that you have a poem in the new book, right? About
Yeah, in the reissue there's going to be a couple of COVID related poems, and one of them is just called COVID, and I'm happy to read it. Yeah, we are in the Hudson Valley. So we are 2 hours north of the city. A lot of people have fled to our area because of COVID. And New York City is a very strange place to be right now. I haven't been down since this struck, but I have a friend who was just down there and was kind of skeeved out by how empty and strange it feels there. But yes, it did hit this area quite a bit. It's been very intense in the state. But as you and I know, and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening now or who are gonna be listening to this know, this would not have happened in a vegan world. This is a zoonotic disease. This is a disease that comes of us exploiting animals, as these various pandemics have virtually all been, right? And we can say, well, this one's in China, but there are ones that have started in the United States. When we deal with animals the way we deal with them, that situation is ripe for pandemic. And I remember them thinking that it might have been a pangolin in the market who could have started this, right? A bat having some sort of connection to a pangolin, maybe shitting on a pangolin or biting a pangolin or something like that. And so that got me thinking, and it led to this poem. And brace yourself, because this is not an easy one, nor is the situation easy, and doesn't call for easy.
okay.
COVID. Who was the pangolin? Caged, in the truck, in the stack, in the market. What could her body, balled up protection, no protection, smooth nail scales, no protection, do but uncurl and mark us? When did her cage unstack from the hens above, the pig below, the dog alongside? When did hands pull her smooth, bald body and slit her throat for its tonic blood, and cut her tissue for the pleasure of meat? Where moved the first virion in her body? Eye, neck, heart. Did its twisted ladders course 1,000 times, 1,000,000, through the mouths of her cells before the hand came down on her neck? And the pig below, the hens above, what poisoned cells course through their dread? How do we fill our bodies without her body? The hens above, and the pig below, and the dog alongside. How do we leave their lives and deaths alone? Leave their cells alone? Why can't we? To tear someone from her life, to cage her, to let her blood for our habit? Did we imagine no consequence? Do we see it now?
Wow.
Yeah, that one's pretty. I was really angry when I wrote that. Being in the midst of the pandemic and going to the store and still seeing those slabs of meat and not hearing people talk enough about the fact that this was caused by meat. And here we are still, the New York Times having articles about COVID right next to, a recipe for lamb chops, and just not seeing that. It made me angry. And I think that poem came out of that anger and that distress.
Yeah, Paula and I on Thursday spoke about this, the fact that if it was a vegan world, we wouldn't have this pandemic. That doesn't mean like in a vegan world that things wouldn't happen, because it's a volatile world. You don't know what's going to happen. But these are from the eating of animals and the eating of animals that we don't even eat here. And yes, I have, if you saw the little black thing on my lap, I have one of my dogs on my lap right now. So if you're curious as to what's going on, she's like a little heat lamp. So, but yes, it's nearly impossible to change the world into 100% vegan. I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetime, but we're definitely seeing something different than we've ever seen before, with the people eating more plant-based meats and plant-based cheeses, and recognizing a little bit of the cause of why we're in this. And also what's more dramatic, I think, for people is what happens to your body when you eat animal products, and what diseases you open yourself up to because of your diet, and how you can eat different foods, more whole food, plant-based, and limit or even remove the possibility of you getting cancer, diabetes, strokes, heart disease. I mean, I'm all for that. I'm all for limiting my risk of getting any of those diseases and dying prematurely because of the choices I made for what I put into my body. And secondary, save the planet. And I'm really right now trying to get people to understand that climate change is just as juicy as health issues and food.
Yeah, I mean, people have different motivations, and some of them are about their own bodies, and some of them are about, in other words, some of them are sort of internal and some of them are external. And whatever gets people there. I mean, for me, it was just 100%. I love animals. I can't say I do, and also kill them. The environment, though, that's great. The fact that I'm much healthier for it, that's great. But I think ethics were my driver. I know other people for whom health was their driver, but having opened themselves up to it, they started to learn more about the ethical, the environmental, and were very, very moved by that stuff too. So I think whatever your entree is, it leads you to this wonderful place.
Yes.
I do also have, but speaking of climate change, I do also have a poem in the new book, in the new iteration of the book, that's called Climate Change.
Oh.
So I can always, I'll give that one a go.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Climate change. A compass is always right. And I thought adults were like that. They would figure it out. They would tremor in a shift and then true us. I grew into this world and its blood factories. Now I know only a compass is a compass. I want all this trauma, this solvable hell, to get solved. And now. But there are no adults in that room. They're busy on the kill line. We are cooking ourselves in our hunger to kill the living. And Gretchen, your words won't slow the line even for a moment. Now will they?
Oh. I like that you put yourself in there.
Yeah, you can have that real feeling like nothing you can do matters, but you keep doing it anyway.
Right, and of course it does matter. And it's the starfish story, right? Which was something that was very much a big part of ethical choices. But if you don't know what we're talking about, the starfish story is basically, very brief way to put it is a little girl and her grandfather are walking on the beach, and there are starfish on the beach, and she picks one up and she throws it back into the ocean, and the grandfather says, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I'm saving the starfish." And the grandfather says, "Why? You know, like, why are you bothering?" And she's like, "Well, it matters to the starfish." And that's it. You just kind of live that way.
And also, that the option is not to do it. Like sometimes that, I love the starfish story. And then it's like, well, so is the answer to just not care? Because that's not tenable to me.
Exactly. I mean, the premise is that even if you think you're not doing anything, or what you're doing doesn't matter, it does, because it matters to something or someone out in the universe, whether you realize it or not. And just by changing the meal you had on that plate, you've made a difference in possibly the less slaughtering of animals down the line because of supply and demand.
That's true.
You don't realize that that's why all these corporations are going into the plant-based world. Plant-based milks, plant-based meats, plant-based everything.
Yeah.
Because that's where the money is. So if you spend your money with these corporations, and I hate to use the word Nestle, I'm really not a fan, but if we go into other corporations, but even so, even with Nestle, or you have, what's their faces in North Carolina, Smithfield, they have plant-based meat.
Well, they did this weird, do they do like that blended thing?
No, they actually have. It's in my freezer. They have
100% plant-based. That's amazing. Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's Smithfield. It's in my freezer. We bought some. It's okay. I prefer Beyond, but it's still, I had a dilemma of holding it, of going, do I give you money? Right? But I know if I give you money and this makes money, you're going to make more of this, because that's how business works. Yep. We can't forget that business is going to drive production, and we can talk with where we put our money. And yes, you can put it all towards vegan businesses and do all that. However, we live in a world where we want to have options. And the reason we have these options now is because we're spending our money, and they're putting this stuff into production and putting it into fast food, and they're putting it into supermarkets and getting it into our hands. So that's incredibly important, and that's the business side of me, because we can always talk with our altruism and our feelings, but what really matters is where we spend our money in the business side, because that's where we're going to get our choices.
Yeah. And that could mean that a company like Smithfield could start to just do more and more operations plant-based, which would mean less and less operations. I was just trying to think of, I think it was Dean Foods that bought silk and just started doing so much silk. And so it's like, even though they were a dairy company, it felt good to support the fact that they were using this other part of the market, so that maybe they would shrink their early part of the market.
Right, because they can't do both. They have their budget, they have their money. Where they're going to put their money is into where they're going to make the most money. So if you buy and buy and buy the plant-based vegan options, then they will put more money into plant-based vegan options. And that's the only real control we have, right? Yeah. But that's incredibly controlling, is money. Because corporations don't really care about people.
That's true.
Whatever the next thing is that's going to make them money is what they're going to spend their budget on. So and they can't put the same. They have one pot, and they divvy it up amongst all the things that they do. So how much money does plant-based get as opposed to dairy, right? What's making us more money? So buy plant-based vegan options from pretty much anywhere you can. And you'll make a difference. Even a food truck, I've said that to people. Like, we have food trucks that come and go vegan for the day at events, but they're not vegan all the time. And I say, you're right, they're not vegan. Yes, they have things on their menu that you would not be interested in ever. But if they see something that can make them money and will sell really well, they may replace that with this.
Yeah.
So give them support. And you never know. There are restaurants turning over during the pandemic and going 100% vegan all over the world right now.
Yeah, it does feel like, it's kind of that 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like I do have these moments of despair when I see the New York Times do a recipe for lamb chops, which they did like yesterday. I'm like, how do you not know better with all your pandemic coverage? But at the same time, there has been a lot of movement around this and a lot of heartening news.
Yes, and the New York Times does vegan recipes too. They do. Mm-hmm. They've written articles on it. So, I mean, it's mainstream. We've gone from like the stepchildren to mainstream.
Yeah.
Is really what it's come down to. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah, it feels like you're not pushing against the current as much,
Yep.
Which is really nice.
Agree 100%. And more people are interested. And if we had in-person events, more people are coming. So people are watching these videos and whatever changes you can do. Plant-Based Network, we have a whole plant-based entertainment and lifestyle network that you can watch 24/7 from your phone, your computer, from wherever.
Yeah.
That didn't exist a year ago.
Yeah.
So it's really neat.
Yeah, and it's neat. It's like, and whatever our skills are, we can bring those to the movement. So, I'm a writer, so I try to bring that to the movement. And, you're just a kick-ass organizer and educator, and you bring that to the movement. Look at Lenore bringing what she brings to the movement, her husband or partner being an architect and bringing architecture to the animal rights movement. That's phenomenal, right? Whatever your skill is, there's a way to help animals with it. So I find that really inspiring too. Like when you're talking about arts, entertainment, there's people who are bringing veganism to music, to film, to novels, to,
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
No, definitely. So do you have like one more that you can read for us?
I have a new one about fish. Okay. And, fish are so forgotten in kind of the literature and the world of just vegan issues, right? There are so many people who are like, I'm vegetarian, but I eat fish, or what. You just feel like, talk about like the stepchild, right? And in the first 4, Kind was reprinted 4 times, and after 2, I did kind of a second edition. I did add some poems then too, and even then I just neglected fish, and I'm so excited to have a fish poem. So I'll read that one.
No, definitely.
It's called Because You Are Silver. Because you are silver, because of your round eye and where it sits, because of your water home, your air distrust, because fins are frilled paper, not hands, because of your temperature, I can take your body, hook you up in a flail, net you up with 1,000 others, and no person will sigh for your life. The body made for its home, just as any body is. It's flashing silver, its cool fins and perfect eyes. Because our vaunted minds are too small to understand other minds, we will call you mindless and swallow you. Let me look at that face in the eye and tell you, fish, I could no sooner eat your flesh than my own.
In case you don't know, fish do feel. Because we don't realize that they do feel. And what's the reason why we can't tell? Because going to education.
Because they look really different from us, and we can't like imagine. I mean, and I just, that irony that our minds are too limited to see that other minds are not limited. You know, that it's really wild. Of course they look different than us. They live in the ocean.
Right.
They live in water. You know, like, of course they don't look like us. They're not cute and fuzzy the way that we think of cute and fuzzy. They're adapted. But that doesn't mean that they don't have minds. They have nerve endings. They have brains. They have social dynamics.
Yep.
So I just find that so funny that it's our limitations that see their limitations.
Right, and the only reason why we can't hear them is because they don't have vocal cords. So they feel pain, but they can't scream, but they do feel pain. And just because you can't hear something or someone doesn't mean that they are in pain, right? Yeah. So flopping around is a sign of I can't breathe. Yeah. For the fish, as you pull him or her out of the water, to, even if you're throwing them back, you've hooked them, you've taken them from their environment. You've let them suffer from not being able to breathe because they need to breathe in water. And then you can't even understand that because they can't really tell you outside of, like, you watching that. And then throwing them back in, like, oh, hey, that was fun. Thanks for the enjoyment. Right.
I had a good time, so it's cool.
Yeah, sucked for you. I mean, hopefully you survive after, the trauma I just put you through. I mean, that's what it is. That's what you're doing. And then, of course, you pull them out of the water to eat, and then you've got other issues because fish are high in, what is it, mercury, right? Yep. They're high in mercury, high in fat. They can lead to issues with your health as well. So
definitely.
It's not a healthy meat that you can put on your plate. That you can avoid getting the diseases that we referred to earlier, the cancers, heart disease.
I know it's just been such a snow job on us in terms of like white meat versus red or fish or something. It's like, no, that's someone's body. It has cholesterol in it. Like flesh is flesh. Flesh involves cholesterol and fat. It just by definition,
Right. Exactly. It's a living being. It's not healthy for you. So, eat some kale.
Kale.
Yeah, we came up with a new shirt design. It's BYOK. Bring your own kale. That's on our virtual adventurous site. So it's like, because that's what you do, right? You go to somebody's house to eat and you don't know if you're going to be able to eat, so bring your own kale. They're not going to eat it anyway. No matter how good it is.
Stereotypes there, Helene.
That's all good. It could be hippie stereotypes.
There you go.
But really, thank you so much. If somebody wanted to buy your books, reach out to you, find you, how would they do that?
Well, one way is definitely my website, which is just my name, GretchenPrimack.com. Or if you just Google my name, Gretchen Primack, you're going to hit it. And then I have like a few of the kind of heirloomed copies of Kind, which hopefully will be worth something someday if anybody wants that classic version. And certainly Visiting Days is for sale there too. The good thing about ordering from my website is that then I can sign it and even inscribe it if you want it for a gift for someone. You can just put that in the instructions box. But otherwise, Visiting Days can be ordered to local indie bookstores. It can be ordered at like Powell's. I mean, it is available at Amazon. I am deeply, deeply against Amazon in every single way and boycott them entirely. But if it's that versus not getting it all, I mean, people are going to do what they're going to do. I just prefer to give my money to corporations that are not trying to take over the world and destroy it. So, yeah. On that note, no, just, yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear you. It's hard.
free shipping on my website anyway, so.
Oh, there you go. And signed. So I mean,
And signed.
you can't beat that. And of course, if we want, we can also maybe throw some stuff up onto Virtual Veg Fest under the Veg Fest Expos. We can and have the books there. If they sell on the site, we can send you the funds.
Sounds good to me.
I know that would be awesome. Well, everyone, really thank you for joining us on this Saturday, and Gretchen, thank you for being a part of this because it's been great to catch up with you and see you. And of course, I would love to have you. Like everybody say the same thing. If you stay to the end, I'd love to have you in an in-person event. And of course, the only way we're going to get to an in-person event is if everyone wears their masks over their nose and under their chin, and they social distance, and you wash your hands, and you do the right things. I just posted on my Facebook page this week, not having instant gratification, delaying your gratification for a month, 2 months, 3 months will make it so that everybody can have what they want. That's what we need to do right now. We need to not be thinking of ourselves egocentrical people. We need to be thinking of the whole and the fact that we just need to take a moment and get through this pandemic, get it to a place where we can have it under control, and then just really then knocking out the fires before they grow into Northern California right now. So if you don't know that, that's really important. Northern California has wildfires, and Animal Place has a fundraiser for the sanctuaries that have had to evacuate. So that's on the Plant-Based Network and the Triangle Veg Fest Facebook pages, please, and Animal Place's Facebook page. Please donate if you can, because it's horrific out in Northern California at the moment. I mean, there's always an opportunity to donate and do something, but if you can, please do. And we did as soon as I saw that, even though we're low on funds, but I just can't see something like that happening and then not do something about it. But the only way we're going to get through this is if we all pull together and we do right by one another, and then we can, like, at this point, maybe we'll have a fall, possibly a winter where we can leave the house and feel comfortable. But
boy, good luck. Yeah.
I know. I mean, that's what I look at it. I go, okay, summer, you might have had this great summer, but it really isn't a great summer because 170 plus thousand people have died. And the last time I spoke about this, it was 150 plus thousand. 170 plus thousand people are gone from this country alone. That gone forever, done. Bothers the hell out of me. I'm afraid of dying, so especially bothers me. This is serious. I don't want any more people to die. So just do the right thing by everyone. And of course, I mentioned poll working. If you can work it just sounds a weird thing to say. It just sounded weird to me. If you want to work the polls for the election, sign up to do that. You can get paid. And we need as many polling places open during this election as possible, especially in communities that are less privileged, because they're the ones that are going to be sitting there waiting online for 8, 9, 10 hours to cast their vote. And of course, as Obama, Michelle, and Barack have said in the Democratic Convention, and everyone else, get your early ballots now. Fill them out, send them in, get your ballots, vote early if you're in a state. Can you vote early in New York?
Yeah.
You can now, because I don't think you couldn't when I was growing up.
Yeah, I think you can. I mean, we're planning to just actually go to the polls, but I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay.
Boy, I hope I'm not wrong about that.
I wasn't. I mean, California.
I mean, you can get an absentee ballot,
right?
Early,
but I mean, we have like 2 weeks of where you can just go vote anywhere in North Carolina.
Oh, yes, you can now.
Okay. Right, yeah. But that wasn't when I was growing up. So,
right.
So if you can early vote, because obviously sometimes it's very crowded, but you can find some place where it's not. And in North Carolina, you can even sign up to register to vote during early voting. So,
wow.
So please do. There's nothing more important than making sure that we're on the right side of history. I'll put it that way because I don't want to get too political. So, but like I said, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands, be smart, take care of one another. And then next week, I didn't look at my schedule. I have no idea who's going on, but it's Thursday and I think Saturday. Just, I'll actually look it up.
Great.
It'll be great because it'll be, Michael Greger. Next Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Dr. Michael Greger is coming on. So that's our reschedule, which I'm super, super excited about. And then on the 30th, Meredith is joining us, and I think she's coming from Aruba, if I have that correctly. So super excited. Again, see everybody. Have a great day. Gretchen, you're wonderful. I hope to see you soon, and have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.